This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
The following episode of TOFOP is rated MA for mature audiences. It may contain sexual references, time travel references, allegations of bin misconduct, and mild coarse language. TOFOP advises that this episode is not suitable for anyone under the age of 15 or anyone who thinks a comedy conversation between two old mates sounds like a terrible idea for a show. Minors must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. This is John Deek speaking.
Everyone relax, this is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
We're not doing a proper episode this week. We're taking a little bit of time out. But what we thought we would do is revisit one of the hottest storylines of TOFOP in 2022, my obsession with Five. Now, I asked Podcast Mike, do you think you would have enough content that you could create a compilation episode? And he said yes.
Yeah, I think so. The problem will be that there's too much content about the boy band Five, but this is going to be a Five mega mix of the entire Five saga. Which, do you think that once this is out, it will finally be put to bed forever, or do you think that this is just...
I don't think so. I've been dipping back into the Five-verse recently, and after that episode about Jay, where we found out where Jay lives, I was like, God, I wonder if I can track him down online. I mean, this dude is my white whale. I don't think he has any social media accounts or anything, but maybe he was photographed in the back of a shot on a Facebook page, maybe a bookshop somewhere in Wales. So I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. What I am interested to find out from this compilation, especially if Mike does it in chronological order, is how the seed was planted, because I think I was too scared to bring it up with you at first. So I started with Cam Knight and then Claire Tonti, and then you listened to those episodes and you asked me about it on air, hey, you're talking about Five a lot, and then that gave me permission to talk about it because it was my secret shame for so long. But then nothing disinfects like sunlight, so you tried to put that sunlight on my Five infection, my Five-ection. But for some reason the story of Five. Well, I was watching a YouTube video on them today while I was waiting for Gemma to be done at the shop. So I went back to YouTube and I found some footage I had not found of them in the late 90s rehearsing. And I was like, why does this story fascinate me so much?
I mean, could you imagine that I wonder if they have some Beatles style Peter Jackson archive of them.
They do. They have because they made... they released a DVD in 1999, which was all the rehearsal footage of them working towards their first tour. So if Peter Jackson wanted to, he could definitely restore...
He doesn't want to. He definitely does not want to. But what I'm saying is you want to. Could you be the Peter Jackson to Five that he was for the Beatles?
I mean... Could I bring 1990 to life in vivid colour?
Right. I mean,
all the ball-bearing necklaces
your wife is
and
a director.
Chains.
You know how to do this. You have the skill set within your own house. It could be your passion project.
I don't know when this obsession is going to end, but until it does, here is a little refresher on my journey with the boy band Five. Enjoy it, and we'll be back with a new episode soon. Play on, not 15.
Hang on, no, wrong show.
Oh, shit.
It is.
I drive Iona to daycare, and Iona's suddenly become aware of the Spice Girls. She really likes the Spice Girls. And so we'll normally listen to Wannabe while I'm driving her to daycare. And then once I've dropped her off, because I've selected that on Spotify, it then rolls on to the next, song in that genre. And so it rolls into late 90s British pop music, like boy band and girl band music. And so just through I guess some kind of osmosis, I was listening to these British pop bands. I started getting curious about, the late 90s. That's right. That's when boy bands were at their zenith. And so I just started doing a bit of digging around online, and I found this show on YouTube. It was like a TV show in 2013 called The Big Reunion, where they went out to all these big boy and girl bands from the late 90s, like Atomic Kitten and like 911 and the Honeys and stuff. And these guys were all big in the 90s. It's been 13 years since they were famous, and they were bringing them back together for like one last big hurrah. And so it's like, you know, part reality series, part kind of, you know, Australian Idol, where they get these acts back on stage. And I started watching this show, and I just was getting, I was fascinated by this idea of all these bands in the late 90s. This is, you know, I guess the last time when you could sell 20 million albums. All these acts were huge. Like, they all sold like millions and millions of records, and they were all intensely famous for no longer than a, say, 3 to 4 year period. And their stories all in the same way. They hit the scene with this huge amount of like, you know, popularity, and they're got number ones, and they're touring the world, and they have number one albums, and then they all implode. It's the same story with each band. It's like they get to the third album, someone gets burnt out, they quit, they try and carry on. Maybe they replace them, or they, you know, become a 3-piece or a 2-piece, whatever it is, and then they always implode. And then the stories from that is like there'll be 1 or 2 band members who try and kind of keep the fame thing going, but then there'll be other band members who are like, well, that was fun, I'm just going to get a real job. And so in this like series, it's them kind of reforming the band, and you're sort of getting all the stories of. So there's this one boy band called Five. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they were like, yeah, they were like the.
Don't
British.
you mean Five Ive?
Yeah, Five Ive.
Wasn't it the Five Ive?
That's right. So they were like Simon Cowell, pre-Australian Idol.
Baby, when the lights go out.
Yeah, exactly. So they were Simon Cowell's like pre-Australian Idol project. They wanted to create a English Backstreet Boys that were a bit.
Wasn't one of them called Abs? Was it one of them was called Abs, right?
Richie, Abs, Scott, Jay, and Sean. They were the 5 guys. And so Abs was the kind of unofficial kind of lead singer. He was the Justin Timberlake. He was probably the most talented. Right. Could sing and rap, was good looking. Then you had Richie, who was like the Hugh Grant. He had the kind of like fringe and was always wearing like very preppy dressed, polo shirt and stuff. You had Jay, who was the kind of heavy. He was the rapper who would come in, and he was probably the best looking. He was probably second to Abs as the leader. So you had Scott, who's kind of he was the singer, but probably like the least sort of good looking of them. And then you had Sean, who was like the shy, mysterious one that probably all the girls liked. He was like the George Harrison of the group. Mm-hmm. So I started focusing on Five because they had this meteoric rise where they were like poised to become a huge boy band. They'd cracked the UK market, 3 number ones, and they're all they'd had their first like top 10 single in the US. They're all set to go. One of the guys quit the band. Then another, like a month later, another guy quit, and then it all just sort of fell apart, and they just sort of disintegrated. So when this series, The Big Reunion, starts up, like 4 of the guys are wanting to get together, and Jay, the heavy, the rapper, they're trying to get him back in, but he decides at the last minute, you know what? Since the band broke up, I just turn my back on showbiz. I just like being anonymous. I don't really want to go back into that, and so they go ahead and they do the show, and it's a big success, whatever.
Now, do they rename themselves for?
They had that discussion. They audition for a new 5th member, and that's great. Like the audition process is great. Like this one dude comes in, and he's just like, he's this like, I'm a male model, but I've done some singing and stuff. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, can you sing for us? He's like, no. And like, oh, okay. Well, could you rap? And he's like, no. And they're like, so you gonna do anything? He's like, no. I'll just, if I get the job, I'll do it. And he walks out of the room, and I'm like, fucking hell, the balls on that guy. It's like he's coming in specifically to audition to be a singer, and it's like, will you sing? He's like, nah, I'll do it if I get the job.
Yeah, if I get the job. Are you paying me for this audition? No.
So they have this discussion about like, do they just become a 4-piece? And so that's what they end up doing. But during the course of this series, like they all sort of talk about their recollections of the band, and they all start like dropping shit on Jay, the guy who has refused to come back, just saying he was a bully, and he was a bit older than the rest of us, and we're all intimidated by him and blah blah blah. So then I was like, shit, like I've got to find out what happened to Jay. Like where is it? And there is Like he literally, when he left showbiz, he left. There is nothing. He has no social media presence. You can't find anything about him online apart from, I think he did I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in 2007. And the only other thing he did was he did this right of reply interview after the series of this reunion where he just did this interview and he said like, he said, he said, I don't really watch TV or anything like that, but, I heard the boys were doing a show and I was really excited for them. And so I dug the TV out of and I sat down to watch my mates. And then they all just bagged the shit out of me and say that, like, I'm the reason the band broke up and that I was a bully and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, it's gone, like, I was in the band too. Like, we were all under, like, the same amount of intense pressure. And, the whole reason I've never decided to go back into showbiz is gone, I just fucking hated it. Like, I hated being told what to think, what to wear, where to be, making songs we didn't really even care about. And so, and all of these bands, like whether it was Five or Atomic Kitten, it feels like all of them, at least one band member was so like depressed by the experience that they were like driven to suicide or at least suicidal thoughts. And then I started thinking about it, it's like, okay, so boy bands, they don't really exist anymore. I guess since the advent of like Australian Idol and stuff, and maybe even K-pop has sort of supplanted boy and girl bands. That's like the number one sort of like
K-pop are boy and girl bands mostly, right?
But it's kind of, that's taken, like I think, the appeal of boy band and girl bands, was that it's like, it's almost like superheroes. It's like you have your favorite character and it's all about the dance moves and the costumes and the choreography. And I think K-pop is that, souped up by a million. Like there's 9 band members and the costumes are amazing. The dancing is even more incredible and stuff. But then I was reading about all these, so especially in England where, as we've discussed on previous episodes, they love a novelty song. Like you can release a cover song of Eternal Flame or whatever, and it'll go straight to number 1 if you get the timing right. But it seems like these record companies, their modus operandi is like, okay, so we'll run these talent recruitments. We'll find this band. We'll assemble this band. We'll sign them to a 6-album deal, knowing that they're probably going to implode after 3 albums. We're probably only going to get – they're almost banking on the fact that this band won't be able to fulfill their commitments because the contracts they get signed to at the start are massively in the record company's favor. If you can survive that initial 6-album deal, then you can renegotiate and you can probably give yourself a much better deal. But like all of these artists, and like I'm talking like multiple, like 12 different groups, and none of them have any money. Like, and all these record companies sold, like I think Five sold 20 million albums worldwide, and none of them have anything to show for it. And then you're like, oh, so that's kind of what it was in the 90s. It's like if you wanted to make a lot of money really quickly, get that boy or girl band together, sign them up to some ridiculous, completely inequitable deal, and hope, like you're kind of banking on the fact that they are going to implode. Because when they were discussing like why they broke up, it was like, they'd been working for 3 years straight. They hadn't had any days off. It was just like tour, studio, press, and they're all like 15, 16, 17 when it started. So they're teenagers. So it makes complete sense by the time they get to 20, they're like going fucking crazy. But then it's like, that's what they want. Like, that's what these record companies want. It's so bizarre. And then, so I was like, okay, well, we're a 3 now. 3. We're a 5 now. 5 at 3. So they just, Abs has left, and Jay, like I said, underground, he's never really surfaced again. Abs is a really like interesting dude. He's from West London, so he's got that kind of like Ali G, Stormzy kind of accent, like for real, like talks like that. And he's like covered in tattoos now, and he lives on a farm. He's a farmer now, essentially. But I found this interview he did like 3 years ago, where again he was talking about how being a pop star like drove him towards suicide, and he tells this story about how so after Five sort of split up, he got a solo album deal, didn't really go anywhere, but he was still like a celebrity and bobbing around in the UK doing stuff. And money was going, but he had this penthouse apartment with no furniture and like no cutlery. It's the only thing he had was his apartment, but nothing in it. And so eventually this very wealthy woman, like wealthy society woman, said to him, just come stay with me. I've got a big house. You can stay in one of my rooms. So he moved into this mansion, and he said like this woman was like just super wealthy and plugged in with like royalty and like just like the, you know, the rich of the rich in the UK. And he said every day was a party. Like there was just constantly people at the house, constant parties. He'd wake up in the morning, there'd be like a tray of cocaine and like a vodka pineapple smoothie beside his bed. That was his breakfast for like 2 years. And he said at one point, a very famous politician said to him, if you sleep with me, I'll buy you a brand new Bentley. And he was like, I actually was thinking about it. It's like, I would really like a Bentley. And then he's like, what am I doing? Like I'm their pet. Like that's what they've got me here. Like this woman just wanted like a celebrity pet. And so I've been like living in her house as this kind of like a weird, it's almost like, you know, here in Victorian times, it was kind of considered like a good social standing to have like a hobo living on your property. And it's like, it's like an Eyes Wide Shut, some weird kind of twisted, decadent rich people thing.
Okay, talk me through this pet thing, because this sounds like a good next stage of my career, because like we have pets and pets are looked after very well. Like the idea of being at some sort of like 2-year party just as a novelty for rich people. Do you think that I could be someone's pet? Do you think there would be somebody out there of wealthy means? Like they have to be eccentric like this person, but say, let's say it is a female benefactor. It doesn't have to be, but let's just say for this example, like this one was, grew up listening to Triple J or something, like in formative years, but has gone on to make like millions in business and those sort of things, and just has always had some sort of affection for me or my work or whatever it is. Like reminds me of some time in her life that is important to her, and she has so much money that she's like, well, this would be fun. Like I could go and see him in concert, or I could just have him living in the pool room and he could be my pet and I could bring him out at parties and stuff. Like what would the role entail, do you think? Like from watching this documentary, what do you feel like your day, what Abs had to get up to?
Well, I think Abs just had to be there. Like, I think Abs just had to, I mean, it wasn't like he was having to perform. So I doubt you'd have to be, like, you wouldn't have to be writing any more material. I think your presence alone is the value. Yeah, I think it'd be a pretty good deal for you. But I think you would have to
Feels
party.
Like a great job.
Well, you'd have to party all the time.
Abs is complaining about. Again, I'm not sure what Abs is complaining about.
Well, don't you think it would be like a little kind of, it would be a bit of a nightmare after a while. It'd be like that ironic punishment where it's like, oh, partying all the time would be amazing. But then surrounded by those people, and I imagine too, it would be a slowly escalating, like at first it would be great. You're just the pet. You just come out and people are like, oh, there's Will Anderson. I used to watch him on the Glass House and stuff. Yeah. But then they want Will Anderson. What can we make Will Anderson do? Do you think if we threw this money on the floor, like with his bad hips, we could get him on hands and knees, like picking up these $5 bills? You know, the humiliations would start because they're rich. They and they, because I think what happens is rich people who are untalented or rich people who aren't famous, they have money, but they don't have any of the other kind of trappings, and so they like hanging around with famous people because it makes them feel like, you know, just by association that maybe they're famous or they're talented or whatever. So they're going to want to bring you down to their level. They're going to want to take the shine off your talent and make you feel as worthless as they feel about themselves. That's what I'm saying. So I think it would be fine for the first month, but soon they're going to want to humiliate you. Just little bits and pieces of humiliation.
I mean, yeah, okay. Well, I humiliate myself on a daily basis, so I can put up with a little humiliation from others.
This week I have Claire Tonti on TOFOP. We had a great chat, and the first half an hour is a bit like a therapy session because when we recorded it, it was when the Northern Rivers got hit with that second wave of flooding, and I was here on my own with Iona. Jem was off at a conference. Iona got really sick. I was minding a friend's dog for the first time who I didn't know, and the dog wouldn't stop fucking barking. So I had like flood water coming in downstairs. I had a sick child and this baby, and I was just stressing the fuck out. Like it was just 2 days of just stressing the fuck out. And then, you know, the only thing that seemed to save me was watching videos of Five on YouTube, like watching like whatever videos I could find of Five. And as we talked about in this show, I don't know what triggered this kind of interest in Five, but, you know, it just became this kind of like safe place for me. So when I was talking to Claire about it, she was like, oh, yeah, I know what's going on here. She said, I talked to lots of mums on my podcast, and you're going through an identity crisis. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, well, it happens a lot with parents when, you know, you've gone from one lifestyle where you could do whatever you want and see whatever you want and, you know, experience anything you want. Now you're sort of in service of this child. And while you love that child and stuff, you do start to go, hang on, like, who am I again? And so the fact that I'm sort of retreating back to this late 90s boy band that I was never a fan of in the late 90s, it's not so much them or their music. I'm retreating back to a time in which I had no responsibility, you know, in which, like, I just moved to Sydney, you know, the world was at my feet. I had everything in front of me. And so in some weird kind of like childhood, like, or adult trauma kind of way, midlife crisis, I guess it is, like my brain is going back to just give me things, remind me when the world was like a safe place. Remind me when the, you know, climate change was just this kind of concept. Remind me when, you know, you didn't have responsibilities and you weren't going to die any second now. Like, and so that's, I guess, what I've been doing is this, like, this weird insulation. And I think the Melbourne thing is another version of that, where it's like, oh yeah, you know, when Gem and I first met, you know, we were living in Melbourne and we had our friendship group, and Sunday sessions would be spent at the Vineyard, or, you know, you go to the pub somewhere and you didn't have any responsibility. You could drink all night on a Sunday night and not have anything to worry about on a Monday. And I don't know when. I'm hoping that this is just like a phase that I'm going through, that I will get over it and readjust and accept the fact of where I am presently. I don't want to be retreating back into my memory of how good things were, because I feel like I'm the uncle in Napoleon Dynamite who's always just talking about, you know, back when I was in high school, I was like the quarterback hero.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I also think that there's just a role for comfort spaces. So we've talked about this before on the show, but the other night when I just came back here after the show and I couldn't get the internet to work well enough to watch a movie or anything. So like all I could do was like watch clips on YouTube. So I'm just going through, like, you know, songs and whatever on YouTube. And then eventually I find myself to the place that I always find myself to when I go down this hole on YouTube. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to watch Bruno Mars dance. And so since I last went down my watching Bruno Mars dance hole, there's been a whole bunch of new Bruno Mars dancing footage, including a 45-minute concert that he put together. So like I sat and watched a 45-minute Bruno Mars concert at 2:00 in the morning the other morning. And I was just like, this is as safe as I have felt in a very long time. Like, in a world that is absolutely terrifying, for this 45 minutes, I understand that I am in the safest entertainer's I think he is. Just, and I mean this, I don't mean he is the most talented person in the world. I don't mean that he is the, the best musician or the best songwriter, but I think he is the best entertainer, like all-round entertainer, singer, dancer, just put on a show. And like the fact that, you know, his gang, his musicians and dancers, like the fact that you will see a song performed different ways. Like, you know, you see them do it at the Super Bowl, you see them do it at their concert, you see them do them some music awards, and they're not doing the same choreography, they haven't set it up the same way, they're not wearing the same clothes. Like the fact that every time they're doing it, they've thought about it as a different performer. Like Bruno Mars, I've never seen Bruno Mars in concert, but I was like watching this concert film the other night just going, if Bruno Mars ever comes to Australia again, I am absolutely going to see Bruno Mars in concert.
I think there's certain artists like that where even if you're not a fan of their music, like Beyonce, I don't really listen to Beyonce's music, but I've seen a bunch of her like concert films and stuff, and she's incredible. And it's really about the spectacle, you know, and the idea of actually, what was I watching? There was someone, one of those music documentaries where they're talking about the first artist to really like art director a kind of concert. Like it wasn't, you know, back in the day it used to be the band would just come out and play, but then the idea of having like an artistic director, maybe, who was it? It was someone who like people think is shit. Oh no, it was Grace Jones. Sorry, Grace Jones. I don't know how I went down this Grace Jones rabbit hole, but I'm like, I don't really know anything about. We were watching an Andy Warhol documentary and there's Grace Jones. I'm like, oh, I'm aware of Grace Jones, but I don't really know who she was. And so then I found out that she was this like model, and then she became this avant-garde kind of artist and musician and a bit of a pop star in the late 70s, early 80s. But she was one of the first people who was like, well, I'm mates with all these fashion designers and artists and stuff. I'm going to help them. I'm going to get them to help me design a show, because I don't know what her musical ability was or even what her voice was like. But that's not why people went to see Grace Jones' show. They went to see the costumes and the lighting and, you know, the way that she would, you know, bring herself onto stage and stuff. And now you sort of expand that. It's been co-opted by pop stars where, you know, Miley Cyrus will get the dude from the Flaming Lips to be the creative director of her show. And so I had friends who would not listen to a Miley Cyrus song to save themselves, but they were going to the Miley Cyrus concert because they were like, it's fucking incredible. Like, it's really, you know, the costumes and the props and everything like that. And so I can sort of understand that. But Bruno Mars, I would be quite happy to see like Bruno Mars unplugged. Just like, if he's just going to come out and sing and do a little dance, then I think, yeah, that he's kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah, I mean, so I watched this 45-minute documentary concert film, you know, that promo film that they'd made. But then I just started going, I'm going to just watch them on every TV show they've done. So there's one that they do with on Ellen where they do Uptown Funk on Ellen. And like basically Bruno and his boys are in the front row of the audience, and they've just like got the entire audience to do all the stuff behind them, like do all the call and response stuff. And I'm just like, the fact that they went to all that effort, you know, like they could have come in and just done the song, done their choreography, whatever, but they've clearly, and the charm that that man has. So this promo, you know, kind of record launch, you know, film thing, there's interstitials in between where he's going around Harlem giving out free tickets and sort of like meeting characters around Harlem, and then him and his boys will just do these little pop-up stoop concerts and like in a restaurant or in a bar or whatever. And it just, like, the level of just brutal charm that he has for a tiny little man, like, he is just relentlessly charming.
You've seen that footage of him as like a 3-year-old Elvis impersonator? Have you seen that? There's a clip of that online.
So this is how I got back. This is how. Okay, so there's these things called the Kennedy Center Honors. Do you know the Kennedy Center Honors? So yeah, so they're honoring some musician, and then they get like other musicians.
Are you talking
play
about
their songs
the Sting one? The Sting Kennedy? Is this the one you're going to bring up, or the Police? The Sting? Because I've seen that one where Bruno performs for Sting.
So Bruno performs Sting, and there's also one where he does Prince.
Right, I haven't seen that one.
And they're both unreal, but they're basically impressions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as in, he has this capacity to be able to like super capture what those artists actually did, like vocally and stylistically and those sort of things. I actually went into it because I was watching Heart do a version of Stairway to Heaven to the Led Zeppelin guys. And if you've never seen it, like, just seeing like them just crumble one by one on the balcony as they kind of witness Heart do this amazing version of Stairway to Heaven. It's just, but then, then I just went down that rabbit hole of just watching one after one after one. And then that got me onto Bruno Mars.
Yeah, it is funny. Like, I think the difference with your like comfort food and my comfort food is mine swings between like, you know, this sort of frozen in time boy band in the 90s when everything was possible. But then I will leap forward to present day and be like, oh, fuck, like, look at them now, 3 of them. And they're doing these kind of like town fairs. Like they do nightclub gigs, and they'll do a tour if there's like a bunch of boy bands in the 90s. They'll do one of those, like, it's a compilation jukebox sort of tour. But there's the one guy in it, Jay, the rapper, who kind of just disappeared from the public eye. As soon as the band was done, he just retreated, didn't do anything. I have been like Bob Woodward. I've just been on the trail trying to fucking find out, where is Jay, man? Like, and I'm like, this is the 2022 World Wide Web. I cannot find, there's not one skerrick of evidence of where he is now. And I just want to know, is he okay? Where's he living? Like, does he still rap anymore? Because he had some pretty good flow back in the day when he was in Five. But then the other part of me is like, but Charlie, he doesn't want to be found. Like, that's why he's retreated from the public eye and doesn't have any social media. And like, you can't find anything on him beyond, he did an interview in 2013 to defend himself about what the other guys in the band said about him. And that was the last thing he did. And then I saw Abs being interviewed last year, and the question was, do you keep in touch with any of the guys from the band? He said, yeah, I talked to Jay a fair bit. And I'm like, oh, good. So Jay's still alive. I feel okay. But if anyone out there can give me some info, and I don't want you to intrude on his privacy. Like, I don't want, if you live in the UK, I don't want you like snapping photos of Jay wherever he is now. But if you just can tell me that he's okay, just let me know that Jay's all right and he's happy in his life of anonymity. I think that will help kind of me just detox from my 5 kind of overload. I want to separate from this now. It's been 2 to 3 weeks now of me gorging on all this 5 bullshit for comfort, and obviously, because I've lost my identity. But I'm ready now to move on. But I think I can only move on once I have some closure around what Jay's doing.
Is Jay okay?
Okay?
That's all we want to know.
We've got a little bit of mail here. All of it is kind of 5 themed. So that will be our 5 content for this week. This is from Callie saying, hi, Will, but especially Charlie. I listened to the last 5 heavy TOFOP eps. I think you just need to embrace your boy and girl band love. Charlie, it's okay. Honestly, you can love manufactured pop and still be cool. Maybe. We have support groups on Tumblr and everything. Yours in boy, girl band love, solidarity, Callie. What do you reckon, Will? Can someone love boy bands and still be cool?
Well, there's nothing that says mainstream acceptance like having support groups on Tumblr to me. The one universal social media that everybody is still using, Tumblr. I think you can. I think it's a different world now. I think that K-pop has changed the game completely in people's understanding of what manufactured pop music is and what role it plays in the pop music sphere. I think that you just need to own it a little bit more. I feel like you've been going in like it should be something that you're embarrassed about. And now you have to just go, no, I'm not embarrassed about this. I am Australia's leading 5 aficionado.
Well, but it did get to the point where someone from I think the official 5 fan club, because all the online chatter had got back to them. And so they were messaging us during the week saying, oh yeah, you guys should definitely go see them. The guys are lovely, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, this is going too far. I like it when it's theoretical. I like us talking about it, but I don't want to be drawn into this world. I don't want to be engaging with the band. Apart from Jay. Is Jay okay? That's the only member of the band I want to talk to.
Don't you think that it would be fun to just be friends with the 3 remaining members of 5? If one of their songs came on at a party, we'd be like, we know these guys. We actually met them at the Rudy Hill RSL after a gig. Okay. We're friends with them now.
I guess.
By the way, is Jay okay? Maybe this is the way we can find out if Jay is okay. I know surely someone in the band still knows where Jay is and what Jay is up to. We've got to find out if Jay's okay.
This is from Sasha. Hey, Will and the 5 guy. Hope you're doing well. I just finished your last episode, and yes, I'm one of those guys who's a Patreon supporter of Willosophy, who is more than happy for that donation to then go to the collective TOFOP pods and funds. But it's easier for you. If it's easy for you, I can alter it whatever suits you best. No, mate, that's fine. If you're happy just to leave your money going to Willosophy, like Will says, it's all going to the same account. So, Charlie, you said you needed to branch off your 5 fixations, so here's a little sideways step. Please check out my amazing friend who is an awesome rapper from San Fran. He goes by the name Fifth. You see the 5 reference? Like me, he escaped a high-control religious cult, Jehovah's Witnesses, and has produced some great tracks about breaking free. Might make some good TOFOP content. Please check out this one track, The Cost of Doing Business. You can find it on YouTube. Oh, and also, I'd be keen to be one of the 200 you need for the 8-hour podcasting marathon idea if you ever do it. It sounds like a typically stupid but very TOFOP branded idea. So we did run a poll during the week to see how many people. We had the majority of people who responded on Instagram and Twitter did say they would come, but we had less than 200 respondents in the positive. So I said we have to be guaranteed at least 200.
Even in a theoretical sense, there was less than 200 people who said that they would do it. Like, even when there was no real stakes on the line, we weren't collecting names or addresses or credit card details, and we couldn't even get 200 to agree to it in that format.
Final bit of mail here from Carl. Gents, I love the pod. Thank you for putting it together. All the talk about Five reminded me of something I saw happen a few years ago. I thought you might get a chuckle out of this story. I was on the tube in London quite late one night. There must have been a Five concert on, as there was a few middle-aged-ish women on their way home in various merch and paraphernalia. One lady must have quite enjoyed reliving her youth, as she'd scrawled five, as in the number 5, IVE, on her arms and legs in texter, and had obviously had quite a few drinks and was feeling quite merry. A dude on the train noticed the scrawling and asked what it was. She explained that it was a boy band from the 90s and he remembered them. Then he started singing the chorus from one of their songs. He must have hit all the right notes, as our protagonist lunges at him, pashes him for about a minute until we pull up to the station. She lets go, perhaps realizes she's no longer a teenager, and quickly jumps off the train, visibly embarrassed. We watched as she runs down the platform, jumps back on the tube into what she thinks is a different carriage to sit down, but it takes her a few seconds to look up and realize she's re-entered the same carriage, just at a different door. She sits there trying not to make eye contact with anyone until she gets up again in the next stop and presumably goes to a different carriage this time. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Well, probably wouldn't have kissed some random dude on the tube in London. I think that would be my first step.
I mean, that's the power of Five.
It really is, man.
That is the power.
I would love
of
to
Five.
know what song he sang that got her so hot and bothered. Maybe when the lights go out.
Yeah, but well, she needed the lights to go out because she clearly got back on the same carriage. That to me is the favourite bit. She's like, I've got to get out of here. This is a bad thing. I've made a bad choice. Run, run, run. Real sliding doors moment, except it's the same train carriage.
I mean, is that like there's a thing that happens to people when they ask out bar staff or waiters and then get turned down and then have to stay at their table or at the bar with the person who's just rejected them. What's more embarrassing?
Look, I think just in this situation, it's all fun. This is all fun, right? Like, you go to a Five concert, you scroll 5 on your like legs in texter, you pash a random on the train, and then you think you're escaping them, and they just end up in the same carriage. It's a good night out. Good story for the girls.
Well, maybe that is like a warning for us not to go see Five at the Rudy Hill RSL. Because what happens if they get us so hot and bothered that you want to passion are on the train home? We just start passion.
Strangers, not the band Five, not the 3 remaining members of the band Five.
No, we respect the 3 the 3 of 5, the 3/5.
I mean, it would be a good place if you were like a sort of a middle-aged man who was looking for some love. And, maybe looking to meet some eligible women. Like, you go there, you let the 3 remaining members of Five warm them up, get them in the mood, and then you just sweep in at the last moment.
Yeah. Sweep in like Abs used to sweep in the opening scene of the Everybody Dance music video. Anyway. I still subscribe to Smodcast and have them come into my feed, but I don't really listen to them anymore. But it's like, I guess that will happen to us at some point, that all these wonderful people who followed us in this 10-year journey will just be like, I remember listening to them, but I don't really dig what they're doing now. They're ranting a lot about stuff, bins.
Honestly, like 9 episodes have been about the boy band Five. I don't know what's going on, which, by the way, came in very handy to me this morning.
Good.
Because completely randomly, I was doing some press this morning and I was talking to Fitzy and Whipper on Nova.
I'm aware of them.
And it came off the back of Harry Styles, and we started talking about boy bands. And
brilliant.
They've kind of like thrown up, just as like a half offer, the idea of, did you ever have in fact, Fitzy's literally gone into it. I know you're into more alternative music, but was there ever a boy band that and then I've done like 5 minutes of could do it at the gala, best of gold on I'm like, Five is still on tour, but there's only 3 of them, man.
I'm so glad that you got to put it to use, because I got a real lesson in knowing your audience, because I was in Melbourne over the weekend and visiting friends, and my mate Nick, we watched the football together, and Nick's kind of like you. He likes his alternative music. He's into sort of more heavier stuff like Tool and things like that. But he also really loves hip hop. And so, we had a bit of medicine. So we're having a bit of a chat. And I was feeling a bit confident. And so I said, oh, you know what I've been listening to a lot of, and I know it's like, silly, it's kind of ironic, but I've really been listening to Five, and he was like, Five, I don't know who Five is, and I'm like, oh, they were this this English boy band, and they're still around. There's only 3 of them, but they're still called Five. Did the whole thing.
What I love, by the way, is last week on the podcast when you declared that you were never going to talk about Five again
on the show, you brought it up
for the next 35 minutes, and then now you're taking these Five conversations out into the wild, trying to have them one-on-one with people.
I won't do it again because I was like, oh yeah, and then I just repeated the bit from last week's TOFOP where I'm like, oh, he talks about Jimmy Fly Snooker and it's Jimmy Superfly Snooker. It can't be Jimmy Fly Snooker. It's not his name. And he's like, what's the song called? I said, Everybody Get Up. And I said, it's actually a fun kind of like, a poppier version of like a Beastie Boys song. You just get like a hard rock kind of riff and you just rap over the top. And we put it on. And like a minute into it, he just sort of side-eyed me and he was like, this is terrible. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's terrible, but listen to this rap bit. And then we go to the rap bit. And I'm like, that's Jay. Jay's gone missing. Like no one knows where Jay is these days. And it was one of those things where, I don't know, like you sort of like introduce someone and then like it just became painful for everyone. Like, cause his wife and Jem was in the room as well. And his daughter.
You've spent a fair amount of time working on your sex swing. Yeah. Right. You've been fiddling around in the garage for 8 weeks, putting together your sex swing. And then you've taken everyone down to the garage and gone, look, I've been working on this project. I think you're really going to like it. And then everyone's like, oh my God, we've got to get out of here.
It was awkward because then we got through the Jay's rap and I'm like, see, he says like Jimmy Fly Snooker, and it's like, yeah, but then there's still like 2 minutes of the song to go that no one in the room liked or wanted to hear, but I'm the one who's like flying the flag going, no, it's not. Look, I get it's bad. I understand that, but it's more just are you not getting the Jay? Jay's gone missing. Like no one knows where Jay is. And there's only 3 of them now. And all right, okay. And so we just sort of let it peter out and then he went to his phone and put on some like underground hip hop guy from New York or something and like completely embarrassed me. So I put my tail between my legs. I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Well, you're the anti-vaxxer at a scientist party. Right. That's what's happened there. Like you've just gone, no, you've got to understand, like there's Bill Gates and there's microchips.
But I've never known how this thing works, like what's cool and what's not. Because this same friend, like about 6 months ago when we're at his place, he put on this playlist that was like yacht rock. So it was all like Robert Palmer and stuff. And I'm like, well, this is shit music. But he's like, no, it's not. It's like actually really, really well written. And, back in the 80s, like the pop music was different. I'm like, how come that gets a pass? Like, Robert Palmer yacht rock. And then I put on Five and that sucks. Like, can't we just both like things that are shit and we just respect each other's terrible choices?
Well, I think that the difference is that you learnt the rap.
I went too far in. I committed.
You went too far in. You got like red pilled when it comes to the boy band Five. And I'm here for it, by the way. I'm not against this in any way. In fact, to the point, and I think this is probably the secret to the long-lasting nature of this podcast, if there is one, which is that we are here for each other's bullshit in a way that other people aren't. So whatever ridiculous thing you want to talk to me about, I am fine with it. Like,
well, I'm glad. But that was a real kind of sobering moment where I was like, and it's also because I think, when we talked about what prompted it, was all about like, in the midst of floods and horrible things happening, I needed some kind of comfort food. But now it sort of feels...
Did you set that up, though, when you were trying to present it to your friends? Like, did you tell that story? See, that's... If you've ever going to try it again, you've got to start
I need a Claire Tonti there to draw it out of me. the deep psychological scarring and the lack of identity that I am...
You have to connect it with this like legitimate moment, because like as soon as you bring up the floods and being in the middle of a natural disaster and like and by day I was volunteering, helping other people clean out the devastation that was wrought on their lives. Anyway, the only thing that really got me through that in a traumatic sense, a therapy sense, if you will, was like this relief, this brain bleach, and this fascinating story about this, like, you know, in the same way as, you know, K-pop is incredibly, you know, it is its own thing. We all know that it's manufactured. Like, this is the beginning of that. And if you'd done all that first and then gone, by the way, I've learned all Jay's raps and he's gone missing, I think by then you would have had him, you know? Like, you could have gone, you know, one of the worst things about the floods were all the people who went missing. Speaking of people going missing, do you know that Jay from the boy band 5?
You know what's really funny too is that one of my old mates from high school, who he lives in New York now. He's lived in New York for about a better part of 20 years. But when we were young, we were very close. And when we left school, we backpacked around Asia together and stuff. And out of the blue, I haven't heard from him in years. He messaged me a link to an article, which is like, I can't remember what it's called, a girl power, like reevaluating the Spice Girls. This idea that the Spice Girls were this manufactured kind of pop band who had this manufactured, you know, catch cry of girl power, but then that actually gave rise to a genuine kind of like feminist movement, which is now there's all these adult women now who, you know, who sort of hold those values true. And he sent that to me saying, hey man, I don't know why, but this made me think of you. And I was like, holy shit, have I been like carrying the can for manufactured boy and girl bands for 20 years and I just don't know it? Like, is this some kind of, you know, born identity where like I've been knocked out and I discovered that I'm actually this like champion of manufactured pop, because I don't recall. I mean, I know that I had an ironic a fascination with the Spice Girls in uni, and that I went and saw Spice World at the movies twice. But I also don't really remember being like this, you know, I love the Spice Girls and I went to see them in concert and I can name all their birthdays or anything like that.
Yeah, but you know what? You are a man who will tell you what you want and what you really, really want. And that's what I've always said about you is, well, you know, I think it's like you talk about the Spice Girls. I mean, Adele could not be more a revered and credible artist. And she talks about how completely like informative on who she was and what she became the Spice Girls were. So I just think you could do that with the band 5.
Right. But they weren't incredibly informative on me as a in my development as a 44-year-old man.
I mean, does that really matter? Like, we can backdate some of this story. Like, if you are going to be the chief proponent for the boy band 5, like, I think that is more interesting. Like, of course, there's going to be plenty of people who are talking about the Spice Girls and how the Spice Girls, but essentially what you've got to do is look at all the stuff that they've done around the Spice Girls and just copy it, but make it about the band 5. Plus, you've got the mystery. Like, imagine if, like, you know, like Posh Spice had like disappeared and nobody knew where Posh Spice was. Like, people would be talking about the Spice Girls.
Well, do you know what the crossover is? I mean, there's obviously the what's his name from X Factor, Simon Cowell. He was behind both 5 and the Spice Girls. But Jay and Mel C from the Spice Girls, they dated at one point.
Really? Is that right? So Jay and
Sporty, they dated at one point. Yeah, very short-lived, but yeah, they were partners.
Is that why he went missing?
I don't think so.
Is there any chance that Sporty Spice has had Jay from 5
No,
killed?
but she did post something because he, like I said, he has not been cited. He's done 2 appearances since, you know, the days of 5's heyday, and I saw on Mel C's Twitter. Someone posted a screen grab of him all bearded and, you know, looking all retired and living in the hills like he does, and said, hey, do you know who this is? And she's like, of course, that's like lovely Jason, you know, blah, 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 blah. He was such a sweetheart. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if they are still in touch. And if you got to Sporty, would you get to Jay? Because as you know, Will, is Jay okay? I have to know where he is and is he okay?
I need to know. Is there a chance? Like, how hard would it be? Because how old would Jay be at this stage?
45.
Okay, perfect. This is perfect for my plan. How much physically would you have to do to resemble, to be able to pass for Jay?
No, I don't think too much. I'd have to, he
like current day Jay.
I would say he would be bald now. He was definitely balding.
Okay.
So I'd have to shave my head. I'd have to get a pretty sort of thick, like he's got that, I think it's a Ross Noble. Where's Ross Noble from?
Yeah, Geordie.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a Geordie
like
accent,
Newcastle
I
or
think.
something. Is he?
Oh, and boys, maybe it might be Welsh actually. It might be a Welsh accent, but it sounds weird. It's one of those weird, British accents. Not one of those ones we can all do. One of those weird ones where you're like, "Where are you from?"
But you know, like, there's always a case of like, Prince Philip's my dad, or like someone will come along and they go like, I'm this person that's gone missing. I am that person.
So you're saying I just say I'm Jay? Oh,
Yes.
well, you know,
Because Jay's gone away.
Jay's gone away.
So Jay's not going to come. Either two things happen. Either Jay's happy because like, it's like, great, I'm back in the band, there's another guy who knows all my raps, everything's fine, or
forced to come out of retirement.
you draw out Joe.
Brilliant idea.
That's how you get to find him.
So is it?
You come out and you say that you are Joe.
But do I have to get the other? Do I have to get the other members of Five on board? Doesn't matter. I just start an Instagram account saying Jay from Five, and I just start sending out missives, just rapping freestyle raps.
Jay from Five is alive is the Instagram handle, and then you just you start building a story that you are indeed Jay.
But I think
from
the
Five.
problem with that is it will immediately be shot down by the existing members of Five. Like the three guys will go, that's not Jay.
Right.
Like, and so there's no need for Jay to come out. Like,
No, so you've got to convince them or get them in on it. Maybe they're fine to be in on it.
They might
right?
be. Publicity would be great.
Yeah. So you rock up one day looking like
so here's
Jay.
what we do. Because I think it's what would be better. Because rather than looking like Jay now, because people don't want that.
Yeah.
They want me to look like Jay looked when he was in his 20s. So he was blonde. He had his signature thing was he had an eyebrow ring. That's how you knew he was the bad boy. Mm-hmm. So I get blonde and I get the eyebrow ring. And I think he sort of experimented with like facial hair. I'll have to dye everything. I'll have to dye eyebrows, hair, beard, and I'll get the eyebrow ring. And I'll have to work on my raps.
Okay. So you do that. We go to see them at the Rudy Hill RSL when they're on tour. And you are dressed
like Jay.
Jay
in 1999 too. So I'm wearing like a FUBU like sports jersey with a big like number on it. I got some Klepper mustard colored pants on and some Timberlands, baggy.
So you're ready to go. And then who's doing the raps now?
Scott.
Yeah, so when Scott's about to lay down, you just like, what would be your best one? If you were going to choose like one.
Everybody get up.
Yeah, everybody get up. So you're going to do like the J bars
Resident president. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that's right. You're doing resident president. Like you just go.
I jump on stage.
You jump on stage and you start doing it. I mean, if Five Ive are at the Rudy Hill RSL doing a gig and someone comes along dressed, put yourself in their shoes, right? Yeah. Someone comes along dressed as Jay and knows all Jay's raps. That's a fun night on the tour. You get that guy up to do a verse.
Yeah, of course. Like Dave Grohl does that with fans all the time, gets them up to play along. Would it also not, would you not just look out into the crowd and go, well, that guy's clearly a massive fan?
Okay. How much do you think it would cost me if I went up to beforehand to like Five's manager and I was like, hey, my friend here is like the biggest Jay fan of all time. Look at him. He's even dressed like Jay was back in the day. He dyed his hair for this occasion. He's like
forget the fact that he's 45 years old for a start. Just imagine he's 20.
And he would really just love to do one verse with the group tonight. Could you do resident president? Is that okay? Like, and how much do you think it would cost me to pay off Five's manager for them to?
I don't think.
You know what? I'm willing to lie a little. He's dying. This is like his Make-A-Wish. Like, and all he's ever really wanted to do. Five are his favorite band. He just wants to do this one verse. Could you let him do it? Do you think that they would agree to that?
100%.
So why aren't we doing this?
Well, that's a good point. Why aren't we doing it? They would definitely allow that to happen. I don't know if that works though to bring Jay out. I mean, isn't the end goal to bring Jay out? I think it's more.
Well, no. Oh, sorry. This is only me planting the seed. Like I'm assuming at this point that you do so well in this rap that they're all like, oh my God, like it's like almost having like Jay back.
I've got a better strategy.
Good.
Okay. So you know that urban myth about Paul's dead.
Paul McCartney,
And,
yep.
And MI6 approached the surviving Beatles to say, hey, this is going to cause mass suicide amongst teenage girls. We have to get a double in.
Yeah.
We approach the 3 members of 5 and say, we are from ASIO. Believe it or not, you guys are still very, very popular in Australia. Huge fan base. You might not be reflected in your download numbers or your social media, but trust us. Like, we've got the data right here, and we hold up like a briefcase filled with sawdust. It's in here. All our files are in here. We bang it, and there's like dust floating out of it. It's all in here. Now, these fans of 5, they're organising a mass suicide, a Jonestown style Kool-Aid event. And it could be mass casualties, but you 3 of 5. 3/5.
You 3/5.
You've got the chance to prevent a mass casualty event.
But hang on, how are we justifying that 20 years after the peak of their career, the fans of 5 have decided to have a suicide pact?
Because there is a hardcore group. Because you only need like 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people is like too many deaths? One of the members from 5. One of you members of 5. Like, are you really going to challenge me and say, well, look, how many fans are going to be? How many deaths is enough? Is 2 like an acceptable number of deaths? No. So just don't question us.
I think you'll find in this post-COVID world, Charlie, 2 is a perfectly acceptable number of daily deaths.
It's true.
We're wrapped if it's only 2.
We're just slapping our briefcase, our sawdust briefcase, saying, don't, we got the numbers. They're watertight. We have lots of numbers in here. So we say to them, to prevent...
We've got lots of numbers in here.
And to prevent those deaths... they need to see at least 4 members of 5 reformed. Don't worry about abs.
Okay.
We don't need abs.
We can work on this later.
But we need Jay back, and we've got the perfect doppelganger. We've got a guy who has been learning his raps. He's been immersed in 5 because not lying there. That'll be the easiest part to sell.
Okay, you know what the other thing is too. You're an actor.
What? I'm an actor.
Like this is a little what's the fucking South Park puppet movie?
Team America.
Like, they've got you for your acting skills to go undercover.
Yeah.
Like, you've been playing all these roles.
I'm so good at acting. I'll play the ASIO agent, then I'll play the guy pretending to be Jay, and they won't know the difference.
You'll need to, because I can't cover either of those things.
And I'm going to do it in the same room, and the 3 members of 5 will be going, is that guy just like... I think he's changing outfits. He's putting on a FUBU top and some clipper pants and some. Oh, good day, I'm Jay.
This is the ASIO guy in a FUBU jacket.
All right, so we say that to them, and I reckon we make it like legit.
Yeah.
Look. We understand that Jay is gone missing, and you're not in contact with him, but we've got this guy who is a dead ringer. So we want you for the next month of the tour. This guy's going to go on tour with you, but you're going to start posting a lot on your socials. The 4 of you make a big fuss about Jay being back. Jay being back. The worst thing that could happen to you, the 3 members of 5, is that you get great publicity. I mean, no publicity is bad publicity, right? And let's be honest. We've looked at the numbers on Spotify. You could do with a bit of a boost. So, what do you reckon? The 3 members of 5. What do you reckon they say?
They say, well, as we always say in 5, all we need is a clear majority. So we just need 2 of the 3 of the 5 for a majority. 2 out of 5 is a majority in this band. So I think we're better off saying, rather than like asking them to act on behalf of their fans, like the threat is directly at them. Otherwise, I think we've got great information about that there might be somebody who is targeting you guys specifically. What we need to do is put in our best agent to just make sure that you guys, and the fact that you're not
that's a good idea.
The fact that you're not a good agent is fine, because there's not actually a threat against them. So it's not going to matter. You're just there to infiltrate the band and lure out Jay, our real target.
But wouldn't it be a great twist if it turns out there actually is a threat against 5, and suddenly I've got myself caught up in this like cat and mouse game with some like crazed 5 fan who just like has always wanted to murder Jay. That's
What
why
I'm
Jay,
hearing-
and we find out that's why Jay's gone underground.
Because Jay was on some sort of hit list. He's had
Yes.
to, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air style, he's had to move, change his identity. You've come back. Oh, this is great. This is actually the plot of your Spice World, the movie about the band Five. Because, like, so you go undercover with this pretend idea that there's a threat against Five. All you want to do is actually just be the new Jay. But then the people who were trying to kill Jay, they realize that Jay is back, or they think that Jay is back.
Yeah.
And so then they come after you to try to kill you. And then the real Jay has to come out of retirement to defeat the enemies.
Well, this is how it goes, right? So we convince him to let me be the new Jay.
Yeah.
You cut to an insane asylum. And it's like the news of like, and Jay has come back to Five. And you see this one guy who hasn't talked in 20 years sitting in a chair. And he just like looks up at the TV screen. And then you see him like just break the shackles. And it's like, oh shit, like I've reactivated this serial killer. But I
like the idea that he's got like rap lyrics just like scrawled all over his cell. Like
Superfly Snooker.
President.
Crossed out, just Fly Snooker, Jimmy Fly Snooker, underlined. That's what drove him insane. It's either Jimmy Superfly Snooker or Superfly Jimmy Snooker. It's not Jimmy Fly Snooker. That doesn't make any sense.
Just banging his head against the wall.
And then I reckon, well, would that draw the real Jay? I mean, the real Jay might be like, fantastic, this impersonator can get killed and then I'm free. I don't have to be in hiding anymore.
Yeah, but I don't think that Jay's that sort of guy.
No.
From what I know about Jay, Jay's not going to let an innocent person die.
It'll be a great third act too, when the real Jay turns up to save my life. And then we all learn a lesson, which is that everybody should get up.
Yeah, exactly, except for the people he's killed. They should stay laying down. And he just finishes the movie and winks and goes, Jay is okay.
Yeah. I mean, before he kills him, he's going to go, baby, when your lights go out, they're going to be out forever. What's the movie called? 9 to 5?
9 to 5. Yeah, exactly.
How long? Not long. Everyone relax.
This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
Cool things for cool people.